Hello, it's Nikki and welcome back. Today I want to talk about money goals and you really making the kind of money that you desire to make in a way that you want to make it. I really don't believe in working 24/7 all the hours and just solely doing that in your life. I think life has to be a blend that works for you. And I know for me, life goes in different chapters. There was a lot of my 20s where I really it was all about work or socializing. They were my two different things. And then in my 30s, it was about really remodeling how I worked so I could parent. I had very little children. And in my 40s, a new chapter has begun. And I'm really beginning to see that money goals and creating income from ultimately your imagination isn't just one thing. It isn't just a case of pricing and packaging. There are so many other elements. And my son, who is 8.5, he is beginning to talk a lot more about money. And one of the things that we were talking about the other day was he was asking, what does £1 million look like? He hears million all the time, not because we're on a luxury yacht or anything like that, but, it's said in that sort of way. And I had to kind of break it down in terms of the numbers that he knew. This is how I taught it to him. So I was like, okay, what can you buy with £1? What can you buy with £10? What do you think you could buy with £100? And when we got into the £100, that was his sweet spot because he realized that he could rounding about, this is like an Arsenal strip. So he was like, I could buy one Arsenal outfit with £100. And then we got into, okay, so with £1,000, you could buy 10 of those. And then it went all of the way up. And he also knows there's seats for about 62,000 people in the Emirates Stadium. So he could begin to visualize what that exchange looked and felt like. And then it got me thinking about footballers and what we can learn from their wealth and from their hard work. Now, this is not coming from a place of saying, oh my goodness, all footballers are amazing and they deserve all of the money. And, there's so many different ways of doing it. But here are some lessons that we can take, because I know that many of my clients come to me because they want to step things up. And yet, as they go ahead and want to step things up, underneath that, there is that sense of, but can I do this? Is it okay to do that? Sometimes there's a feeling that who you need to become is vastly different from who you are. And this is money mindset work, my friend. And so hopefully today, these 5 things will give you lots to think about. So if I think back to my childhood, and I was an avid reader of the Sunday Times Rich List. I used to love going through that. It was one of my favorite things. I can't even remember when it came out, but I used to really enjoy reading all of these stories. Granted, a lot of the stories were similar and the same sorts of people, and I haven't read it for a while, but I'd be interested to know how that has changed and if there is any more diversity. But when I was thinking about careers and people who earned a lot of money, there would be this sense of like faceless people in the city. That was something that I heard. Or some people with big jobs. That was something that came up, like, oh, they've got a big job. And you're like, oh, right, okay. So does that mean that they earn a lot of money? And the other reference I had was footballers, because in the 80s and 90s, it was always on in my house, and I think I had a break for about 10 years, and now it's definitely back in my house because my son and my partner are quite obsessed with the whole thing. So there's a lot of football going on and therefore a lot of chat about it. But this was one of the things that was a reference point for me of this person earns X number of thousand per week. And one of the figures that I began to hear a lot was like they earn 100 grand a week. And I couldn't almost compute that for a year, let alone a week. And my dad used to say this thing of, I know that this person will get 100 grand this week and 100 grand next week and 100 grand the week after. And as you begin to feel that stacking up, like that is massive. So the first thing I want you to think of is, do you have any reference points of people who are making the kind of money that you want to make? And I want you to spend some time with those references and think about whether it could be possible for you, how you feel about it. Do you have any emotions around it? I would love to know. The second thing is, generally, those footballers who earn massive amounts of money, their main commitment is to be a great footballer. Please come, play well, score lots of goals, and try not to get in the press too much with your infidelity. You know, I'm sure, I don't know if that's in the contract, but that's the general thing. Come in, make loads of money, be a great representative for the club, the brand, and off we go. Now, for many of us who have a portfolio career, doing one thing is not necessarily what many of us want to do. But it's about finding those common denominators that run throughout your personal brand and not feeling like you have to monetize all of your interests or do all of the things. So one example that I can give you is I love to cook at home. I'm a reasonable cook, I would say. I feel confident cooking for my family, welcoming people round to my house, doing lots of things. I'll give something a go. If there's a recipe, if I can watch a video, I'll give it a go. But I don't need to be monetizing that cooking element of my business. I mean, unless I'm, I don't know, hired as a presenter to watch somebody cook something and then do a bit of chopping on the side, absolutely fine. But that is not my main thing. And again, going back to this footballing situation, they are hired to be that one thing, but all of the elements within that. So I invite you, when you're thinking about your money goals, where you're going next, what do you need to add in, and what will contribute to that one thing. Number 3, no more hours than necessary. Now, when we start a money goal, I think for many of us, automatically we go into, right, I've got to give this everything I've got. I've got to add in more hours. I've got to get up earlier. I've got to go to bed later. I've got to work weekends. I've got to do all of the things. And sometimes it's not about that. It's about doing the things that you know are going to make you better. So I'm sure that those footballers, as soon as they get to a professional level, I mean, obviously they're going to have some kind of structure, some sort of training. They're not just winging it and making it up as they go along. But very much so, there will be a moment where they need to incorporate rest. They need to incorporate fueling their bodies, having time away, really lovely boundaries within that. So listen out for all of those things. Do you automatically go into a place of, I've got to do all of the things, I've got to be everywhere? And actually learning from footballers, I'm sure that they do have, you know, a fairly intense training schedule, especially if they're playing bigger games. But I don't think they're all staying up till midnight and starting at 6 a.m. and just playing football all day. There will be that sense of stepping back and recovery and doing the other things around it. Number 4, environment. Other people. So I assume that once you are a Premier League footballer, for example, or playing for your country, there is a general conversation about money. And you can watch the David Beckham program to see that. There was this sense of like, oh, that person's driving that kind of car. That person's wearing Gucci. It's not like one person is like, oh, hi, I'm the richest. And everybody's like, I've got these really nice trackies from JD Sport. Everybody is elevating and going to that level. So I urge you that if you're thinking about going to a new level in terms of money and the way that you do life and business. Surround yourself in environments where people go, great. Oh, and by the way, let me just give you a little tip here. This worked for me. Maybe it would work for you. Or try this payment system. This was amazing. And it will allow you to have payment plans, for example. I think who we surround ourselves with is really important, because we have that ability to be energized by all of these things, or for it to be completely draining. So there could be that moment where you are going to the next level, and maybe you've mentioned it to your friends and family, and already you're having the chat in the background like, do you think you can make money from that? Really? Like, oh, I'm not sure. Oh, wow, that's a lot of money, isn't it? How on earth are you going to do that? Not helpful. It's almost like if you're going to run a marathon, you need people around you who go, do you know what? It's only 26 miles. We can totally do this. Even if we have to walk some of the way, it will be fine. You don't want somebody running alongside you going, do you know that people die sometimes doing this? You don't want that. So you want to keep the vibes high and really consider that environment. Number 5, everything is geared around doing the thing that you want to do. So I think that when we go to a new level, we really have to question what pieces of the puzzle are taking up our time, our energy, and the way that we're doing things. And I think that, especially for women, there is this moment sometimes that we have to be all, we feel like, we don't have to, we feel like we have to be all of the things. And a couple of weeks ago, really silly example, I organised the cake stall for my daughter's class. And I mean, it was fine. It's not like it's not like I was organising Ascot or anything like that. It was a cake sale, but there was a bit of back and forth. There was time on email. I did a Sainsbury's trip to pick up some cakes that, people have donated money. And my daughter said to me, "Are you going to bake as well? Why don't we bake cookies?" And actually, I didn't have any more capacity. I could do the organising and the running to Sainsbury's because I was going there everywhere because, life. And I remember going, no, I'm not going to do that this time because what I've done is enough. And I think when we go to the next level, we have to break some patterns, some familiar things of like, do I always need to be the person to do this? Or do I need to spend my time and energy in this particular area if it's not getting me to where I want to get to? And sometimes that requires, sometimes in the short term, sometimes in the long term, it requires investment of your energy, your time, your resources to get you to that next level. So I know that in order to grow my business, one of the most important things I need to do every day is feel good. And that sounds very kind of Billy Basic, but honestly, if I feel good, if I feel energized, if I feel awake, if I feel connected, that is when I'm going to reap the rewards. That's when I'm going to show up. That's when I'm going to bring my best version to the table. And I've discovered through 84 days of doing this that running 15 minutes every day gives me that extra rocket fuel of what I need to do that. So even though somebody on the internet might be like, they're 15 minutes you could spend reading with your children. Yes, it is. But I also know that I have to fill up the different pots of myself in order to do all of the things. So how does that sit with you? What are your money goals ultimately for the next month, the next quarter, the next 6 months? What are they? Get really specific and then consider what work, and I don't just mean like work, email. I mean the 360 version of that. Do you need to do, to create, to cultivate in order to get you where you need to get to? I would love to know. As always, do go to the money section of my website. There is loads of resources, an online course. We can do this work together. And there's something about saying to yourself, right, off we go. Let's do this. That immediately it bumps itself up your priority list and it becomes something that you're focusing on. I hope that's useful. I would love to know your thoughts. Lots of love and I'll see you soon. Bye.